Ladies and gentlemen, it's 2 o'clock and time for our next presentation, which will be delivered by Mr. Chris Boykin, who joined HouSecCon in 2010 via its acquisition of the Houston-based company that he founded in 2002, GotNet Security, where their leading product was Checkpoint. Chris has been in the IT industry for over 20 years in various roles, including network and security consulting and different levels of management. Starting his career as an electronics technician, he eventually worked his way into networking, where he obtained the coveted CCIE certification, Checkpoint certifications, and various others. He later helped develop Cisco training courses to prepare individuals to work on Cisco TAC. Currently, Chris is the Chief Technology Officer for HouSecCon, a Checkpoint 3-star partner, and he regularly speaks and sits on expert panels at industry conventions and trade shows like ours. Welcome, Chris.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I know what you're thinking, a long introduction for such a short guy. But I do have a lot of industry experience, been doing this for a good long time. You're probably asking yourself, you know, since I don't work for this company up here that's listed, Checkpoint, then why am I here speaking? And another question you might be asking yourself, if you know who Checkpoint is what does Checkpoint have to do with mobility? Right? Because Checkpoint traditionally, in most of your minds, is probably a firewall and VPN company, right? But Checkpoint, if you haven't heard, is expanded, and they do a whole lot more than just that now. And one of the things that they do is mobility security. So I'm going to be talking about that today. And back to the first question of why am I up here talking about it instead of some Checkpoint guy? Well, I asked myself the same question. No, really, I started out my career as a user with the Checkpoint stuff. I worked for companies that used their product. I learned about their product. I then moved to a reseller company here in the Houston area, and we sold their product. That company got acquired. I started my own company. Me and another guy from that company started our own company, and we resold Checkpoint as one of our leading products. And I really built my business off of that. I did that for about 8 years, and then I sold it to the company that I'm working for now, which is called HouSecCon. We're based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we spread all over the Texas region, as well as Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And there I currently, as was said before, I currently act as the Chief Technology Officer, the CTO. So part of my job is to vet out the different products that our company is going to sell. I also run the engineering side of the house for our company because we do a lot of professional services, and one of the lead products that we deal with on a regular basis is Checkpoint. And so they asked if I would be willing to come up here and speak about this and speak about their product, so that maybe it's not just a sales pitch, right? We're going to be coming, I'll talk to you more from reality and what's really happening, not just a bunch of marketing and sales, which tends to happen sometimes when you hear just from the vendor. So with that said, I'm going to move into the presentations. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. Some of the Checkpoint guys, you may have seen them, and gals, you may have seen them out at the booth, and they're sitting, from what I can see, in the back at one table. And we'll have them stand up to answer any questions you may have about the products and stuff that we're going to be talking about. But this is definitely not a product pitch. I want to talk to you about something that's really real. And I want to start off with some truth. Right? I know that's kind of weird to think about at a security conference. I'm going to be telling you the truth. But I'm going to be telling you the truth about the fact that BYOD is on the rise. Now, some of you out there are saying, well, yeah, it's crazy. And some of you are saying, no, we don't do that at my company. But the facts are the facts, and the truth is the truth. And even though it started a few years ago, where people wanted to bring their own devices into the corporation, and the company said, no way, you're not putting my data on your device, the mindset has started to change. And what we see in looking at in the statistics and looking at reports and audits that are done, is that about 36% of American-based companies currently have some kind of BYOD program, fully sanctioned by the company. That means it's supported, that they allow the users to bring their own devices, that they put software on them and control them, that they take responsibility for them, and that they let their end users do this. That's a much faster pace than what Gartner had predicted about 4 or 5 years ago. They said that by now, in 2015, we'd probably be in about the 10 to 15% range of the companies that would fully sanction an idea like BYOD because it was just too new and crazy and insecure. But take the next number, and it's a little more shocking. 46% of the employees at companies, whether it's a sanctioned company or not, 46% of these people use their personal device for work anyway. So you've got about a third of the U.S. companies that are actually sanctioning this and put programs together to try to do something to keep it safe. And then you got 50% of the employees everywhere in the U.S. that are just using it for whatever anyway. They're jumping on the Wi-Fi, they're getting their email, they're doing whatever they need to do to use their personal device in your work environment. Well, this poses some significant security risks. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So the fact that you're sitting in this room, and it's a pretty large room and it's fairly full, makes me think that you have a good idea of what's happening out in the marketplace. You understand the truth that I just talked about with BYOD and how this is really prevalent. And you're starting to notice that the risks are elevating and escalating. They're becoming more sophisticated as we move along in time. For example, you start to see these attacks like the mask attack and the wire lurker attack that are out there, right? Which take what looks like a regular app and replace it with a malware app, still looking like the real app. Or like wire lurker, which can hack and jailbreak your iPhone just by plugging it in via USB to your computer, as long as that computer is infected. And so they're becoming a lot more sophisticated, which means the risks are getting higher and they're harder to detect. Another statistic that I found interesting is that the malware that used to be focused on the Windows side of the house and used to be focused on the laptops and the desktops of people running Windows is now shifting to the mobile side. They've realized that more people are being able to bring those devices into work, and people have become more savvy in protecting those Windows machines that they allow in their corporation. And so what they do now is they focus on the mobile side. And about 96% of those attacks against mobile are targeted at Androids. Now, for you Android guys in the room, I'm sure that doesn't come as a big shock, right? But for you guys who maybe are iOS guys, you're probably thinking, I told you your stuff was not secure, right? Well, we've got some news about that too. But 96% of the attacks, so the majority of those attacks for malware against the mobile devices are going to the Androids. As a matter of fact, out of the Google Play Store itself, the top 500 most downloaded apps, 5% of those apps, and these are legitimate apps, 5% of those apps are actually leaking personal data. So it's a legitimate app, but it's giving away your data to people that you don't even know about. And most of the time, you're just accepting it anyway. The iOS guys, as I said before, are not really out of the woods, though. Have any of you guys heard of in-public apps? A few hands. Well, in-public is something that Apple made. If you know Apple at all, you probably understand that their iOS devices and the way that they want you to get the apps onto your device is through the App Store. And unless you jailbreak your device and go to some third-party place, then that's the only place you're going to get it. Unless you're a corporation. Then you are given what's called an enterprise license. And that enterprise license, what it does is allows you to build your own applications, place those in a special type of container, flip the right switches, use a certain certificate, and push those down to the users in your corporation without Apple having it on their store. which is a great idea and something that was very necessary. And of course, the MDM vendors like MobileIron and AirWatch and those guys that are out there, they need that in order to control which apps that they push to you. However, the hackers are pretty smart, as you guys know. And so what they've been able to do is figure out what are the switches I need to flip, how do I mask myself into looking like I'm an enterprise license, or how do I get hold of one of these enterprise licenses so that I can push this out to the populace of iOS users without them putting it on the App Store and Apple figuring out that I put malware out there. Well, have you ever seen one of these buttons? You go to a website, you follow a link in an email, and you see this button that says, download it from the App Store. And you click that button, but it doesn't go to the App Store. It just all of a sudden starts downloading the software and installing it on your device. But wait, it said get it from the App Store, and Apple forces me to get it from the App Store, so how is this happening? Well, it's because it's a hack. What the hackers have done is figured out how to give me that piece of software, that app, which is going to be malicious, I promise you, and put it on my machine without going through the App Store just by getting you to follow this link. So what looks legit and what you feel like is you're doing something right is actually dangerous. It gets onto your device, it's malware, it's stealing data, it's grabbing passwords, it's doing all kinds of good stuff. There's about 1,400 of these running wild out there on the web, but you can imagine this is just going to continue to grow. 1,400 doesn't sound like a lot whenever there's millions and millions of apps available. But if I can send you a phish email and get you to follow a link to get the new update of Flappy Birds or whatever, and get you to click it, I can load it onto your phone, and you know nothing. It's the way that we're seeing the Apple super secure size starting to be less secure. The other bullet that you see on there is about malicious iOS profiles, and one of the other ways that they're hacking the iOS devices are changing profiles. If you know anything about iOS, you know that profiles are king. That's how you set up your Wi-Fi, that's how you set up your VPNs, that's how you set up your email. You create a profile. Well, what if I can alter that profile and change it to make it point to me as a malicious server? As a matter of fact, not a whole lot of people know this, but you can find it out there that several years ago, LinkedIn actually changed profiles with one of their LinkedIn apps that you put on the iPhone, actually would alter the profile, and all your email would go through their servers. It was LinkedIn. They did it on purpose. But they eventually took that away when people started figuring out and complaining and realizing that could be a privacy issue. So, lastly, and probably the most important and the most dangerous way that people are hacking the mobile world today is through what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. If you're not familiar with a man-in-the-middle attack, which most of you are, you're at a security conference. If you're not familiar with it, what it is basically just getting in between your connection. You connect to a Wi-Fi that you think is legitimate, but it's really spoofed, and you're connecting to somebody else's Wi-Fi who is studying and watching everything that goes through there. Or worse yet, you connect to a real legitimate Wi-Fi, and so do I as a bad guy, and I run something that redirects you to me, and all of a sudden all of your browsing and everything you do is going through my connection. I'm able to see where you're going, what you're doing. I'm able to grab your passwords, grab your usernames. I'm able to take all the pictures that you have, everything you're trying to download, I can download it too. And by the way, if you go download some application, I can replace it with whatever application I want you to have. So I can literally mask the App Store or the Google Play Store, and when you go to download your next game, you get whatever I put in place. And this isn't hard to do, folks. Get a jailbroken device or a rooted device, run the right kind of software, and I can get you redirected to me in an instant without you even knowing what's going on. We'll talk a little more about that, but you have to understand that these are some major risks, and mobile devices in general, we have to admit, they're just hard to control. They're hard to control because we don't want, as a user, as an end user working at a corporation, we don't want somebody coming in there and telling us how we're supposed to deal with our personal device or what we can and can't do. So we go around it and we circumvent it and we do whatever we want. And even when we do control it, like if we put together some kind of BYOD program and we make them, run an MDM and we're going to put some controls around it, it's still a mix of personal and business data on that device. And we can't really control the users, can we? Users are going to do what users are going to do. And one of my favorite things is, think about what do you do as an end user, as somebody who pays your own mobile bill for your data. What is the first thing you do when you go to an airport, a hotel, a coffee shop? What's the first thing you do? You look for Wi-Fi. You look for Wi-Fi, and you want to find the unlocked Wi-Fi, and you want to find the free Wi-Fi. Why? Because I'm going to save on my data plan. Well, I like to think of Wi-Fi kind of like free Wi-Fi as a free puppy. There's no such thing as a free puppy. Anybody ever got a free puppy before? Yeah. There's a lot of feeding and care and poop cleaning and all that stuff you got to do. Same thing with free Wi-Fi, right? Free Wi-Fi is like having a free puppy. There's a lot that's going to take place while you're on that. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest places that you see the man-in-the-middle attacks happening is at your local Starbucks. I mean, ATT Wi-Fi, can I not just create my own ATT Wi-Fi hotspot and just everybody's going to jump on it because that's obviously legitimate? Of course I can. But even as I said before, I don't even have to be that creative. All I got to do is join the same Wi-Fi as you have. And I'll just redirect you over to me. Because you're on the same Wi-Fi. And we're all just playing nice. Free puppies. I got a box of them in the back if you want one. So, we have to be thinking about these things. The number one question when we talk to CISOs, CIOs, and CSOs, the number one question that we get asked is, are we secure? Well, the answer is pretty easy. No. Because if you want to take over something, if you want to break into a company, you're going to be able to if you try hard enough. There is no silver bullet, there is no exact answer, but we're doing the best we can, and people like you in this room are able to help with that. Help secure corporations and help them feel safer and help them do more to be secure. A company that was recently audited found that about 5% of their mobile devices in their organization had some kind of infection on it. Whether it was malware or a virus, or it had been attacked by middlemen, or whatever happened. And so the CISO said, we're going to put mobile threat prevention software on every mobile device. In this use case, we needed to find out what threats they found, what kind of employees had problems, and what kind of business impact did it really have. Because, security is not cheap until you find yourself in the paper. So, let's kind of walk through this use case scenario for a little bit. What we found was that a business manager had some kind of malicious application. Whether he had downloaded it himself on purpose, or maybe a mask attack had happened, but he had a malicious app. That app was doing some things on his device, like extracting emails and contacts and calendar info. Why is that a big deal? A lot of reasons. We can talk later if you don't know. But they were also able, with this malware, to be able to turn on his microphone. And because they had access to his calendar, they knew when he was in important meetings. Turn on the microphone, get the information you want. Oh, and if I wanted to see or look around and see where it was, I just kick on the camera. All of this is real. A researcher had a credential stealer on her device. They were able to grab her username and password, able to get into the VPN, which led obviously straight to the data they wanted. Able to log into financial systems, able to do all kinds of stuff because they were able to monitor the data, steal the credentials, and reuse them. As well, they were able to extract the data that she was typing in with keyloggers. Starting to get your interest yet? The executives, well, gotta love the executives. You ever notice anybody with a big C at the beginning of their title tends to mean that they don't need to have any security on their devices? We found that the executives are the ones that lay down the rules, and we spent the money, and we don't need to follow all the same rules that I'm making you follow. So the executive went to his local coffee shop and did the things that he does to make the company operate and work. And he got man-in-the-middle attacked. Through that, they were able to capture all of the corporate emails that he was sending back and forth and intercept a VDI session to watch exactly what was happening and what he was doing. This is truth, folks. When the cyber criminals get in, and it's getting easier and easier every day, then bad things can definitely happen. We know about it on our laptops, and we know about it on our desktops and our servers, but we rarely think about how dangerous it is with this little monster computer that we carry in our pocket. The same computer that has 3,000 times more power than the first space shuttle that went into space, we carry in our pocket. When the criminals get in, they extract information. They get phone records and text records. They get contact lists, browser history. Where do we go? What do we do? We find all this information. When the cyber criminals get in, they can turn on the microphone, eavesdrop on anything that's going on. Turn on the camera, as I said before, and look around, see where you are, grab the images. They can track your device. You know that most of your devices that are using GPS that help you with your map to get around everywhere, by default, when you load a lot of apps, are also continuously revealing your location. As a matter of fact, the photos that you take, unless you turn it off, will tell exactly where you took the photo. If I get enough of that information as a hacker, I can find out where you live, where you work, maybe even where you are right now. Obviously, we can get emails and get access to them, but have you ever thought of the fact that they could send emails on your behalf? Send text messages on your behalf? It basically impersonates you to gather more information on more people you know and what they're doing and continue the string of attack. And lastly, you've seen on the PCs, I'm certain, you've seen CryptoLocker and things, ransomware that's actually locks up your computer, encrypts it all and says, hey, you want to get your stuff back? Just give me $300. I'll give it back to you. Oh, and you got to use Bitcoin so you can't be tracked, right? But you can do the same thing with the phones. If I have control of your phone, I can lock it, I can change your PIN, I can pop up a little message that says, hey, grab your friend's phone, call me up, follow this website, give me some money, I'll give you the PIN back. It's moved away, folks, from the laptops and the desktops that we cherish so much, all the way down into our pocket. And the solutions that are out there today, they have major security gaps. Sure, we've put in BYOD programs, we've bought MDM, but that's only doing so much. They're focused on managing the device itself. It's focused on, the specific threats that are known. Sometimes we look at those things and we say, oh, well, I've had antivirus on my Android. Yeah, well, if you know it's a virus and you're up to date, then sure, we'll stop it. But what about the things that are brand new, the 0 days? There's limited protection even with the newer security type of things that the MDM and EMM vendors have come out with, the containers and such, that there's still some limitations to there and how secure that is. So Checkpoint is in this market too. And they do this with a few different types of applications. One is called Capsule. And there's a few pieces to it, Capsule Workspace and Docs and Cloud and whatever. But for the most part, what it does is it's trying to stop unauthorized access and data leakage from the device itself, which are two of the biggest issues with the device running around your pocket. They do this with a secure container, but a container that allows you access into your email, your contacts, your secured documents. That's completely wipeable and can be encrypted to keep people out from it. They also keep the documents safe through document encryption. And I'm not talking about just document encryption that's on the device itself, but if I emailed that device to a buddy, then that person is the only person that can open it. I can say who can open that document, or who can edit that document, or who can print it, or screen capture it, or any of those things. I can say that, and it follows the document wherever it goes. So they don't have to be running the same software or doing the same things. I can keep that document encrypted. But the other piece that I'm talking mostly about today is called the Mobile Threat Prevention, or MTP. And what that's trying to do is protect you from malware and bad applications and the config changes and all of these things that we talked about, the man in the middle. And they do this through app analysis and host analysis right on the device. And this is for Android and for iOS, and for the capsule piece, even for Macs and Windows PCs. The highest level of mobile security in the enterprise, because they're doing not just one thing, but three. They're looking at the device OS, they're looking at the applications, and they're looking at the network. So they're detecting attacks, they're detecting profile changes, they're detecting these things that are happening on the device itself at the OS level so that they can take a legitimate action to thwart the threat. On the side of the applications, they're reviewing the applications, they're taking the application from the device, throwing it into a sandbox, and doing some analysis on that to determine, is this doing anything? Is it opening up programs it's not supposed to? Is it have access to things that it doesn't need access to? And then on the network side, looking for things like man-in-the-middle attacks. They have the industry's highest mobile threat catch rate. And they do this by things like advanced application analysis. Like I was talking about before, taking those apps, sandboxing them, scoring them so that you understand this is a risky app before you even download it. Doing code analysis and behavioral analysis to see what's happening with that app once it's on the device. On the network side, looking for Wi-Fi anomalies and man-in-the-middle. On the host threat analysis side, as I said, looking at your profile changes and the configs. All of that together is a threat prevention network that is working in the cloud, talking to all of their devices everywhere that Checkpoint is deployed, and letting those guys know, hey, this is a bad thing. Creating signatures and using some of those traditional ways of giving pre-notification. Here's a little bit about how it works and a sample. I don't have time to do a demo, but we can talk to you about that. We can come out and show you a demo, put it on your site or whatever. But here's an example of, say, an iPhone, just because people think iPhones are, non-hackable. So here's a picture of an iPhone. They download an app through one of those ways that I told you. It's a masked app that came through with an enterprise piece. It looked like it was part of the convention they were going to, right? Some mobile convention. They download the app. Once it's downloaded and installed, then the Capsule Protect automatically pops up and says, hey, you have a threat on your device. So it gives them instant notification of, hey, something's wrong here. As you can see on the bottom there, it might be hard to see from where you are, but the Wi-Fi is okay and the config's okay, but the app itself is bad. Then it immediately gives them the ability to get rid of this. Now, this can come in the form of giving them instructions of, hey, go delete it, here's how you delete it. Or if you're working in conjunction with an MDM, then you're able to actually set policies that say, hey, when this happens, take this action, which could be deleting it, blocking it, kicking off a VPN to avoid a man-in-the-middle, stopping the access to the corporate email, whatever it happens to be. So that's just a quick little preview of that. We'd be happy to talk to you more about that as we, if you're interested. The benefits of something like this is, yes, there is an agent that has to go onto your device, but it's a lightweight agent. It doesn't take up a bunch of battery, it doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's constantly running in the background to give you the best protection there is. continuous device risk analysis, and looking for the threat mitigation. It can report on its own, or it can integrate with the SIMs that you guys already have. It can integrate with the most popular MDMs that are out there and EMMs that are out there so that it can help with the threat mitigation as well as be able to be deployed from those. And, of course, giving you the true visibility for security on your mobile device, that computer in your pocket. So, questions? Good. I didn't have any answers, so that works out. No questions? Seriously? Yes. That's a checkpoint question. Checkpoint. Is it going to be available for personal use or only for enterprise use? There you go. If you didn't hear that, currently it's enterprise only, but they are considering personal use. Good question. Anybody else? Seriously? Yes. The name of it? It's called MTP, Mobile Threat Prevention. Yeah. And the other piece I talked about with the document encryption, that kind of thing, it's called Capsule. It works with other MDM solutions. So today, most of your MDM solutions, AirWatch, MobileIron, those kind of guys, right? They're really into the controls of the phone, right? They'll provide you with the profiles you need. They'll cut you off from corporate information, or whatever. If you violate, jailbreak your device or whatever. They can give you configuration information, whatever. But they don't do a lot of security, right? So they're not. A controlled device doesn't mean it's a secure device, really, is what it boils down to. So what they're doing, what Checkpoint is doing, is they're working with those, first off for the deployment, being able to use the MDM that you currently have in place to push out that application that you're going to need on there to do the MTP, as well in working in conjunction with them to mitigate some of the threats. So if, in fact, we come across a man-in-the-middle attack, and we detect that on the Checkpoint side, you're being man-in-the-middle attacked. I can do a couple of different things. I can, kick off a VPN back to my corporation just with the Checkpoint side, or I can tell MobileIron or AirWatch, say, hey, cut them off from the email, remove the profile from my Wi-Fi, do whatever. So they work in conjunction with enforcing some of the policies based on what the detections were. That make sense? Works in conjunction with, just think APIs, basically. It doesn't sit on top of it or sit below or whatever. It's doing two different things, working in conjunction with each other. And you don't have to have an MDM or EMM to have this, right? You can do this without it. But if you have it, then it can be more powerful. It's really filling in one of the gaps that MDMs and MAMs, EMMs, all that, filling in the gap that they have. Good question. That spawn any other questions? Anybody jump on the free Wi-Fi here? Want me to display your password? Yes? That is a great question. So the question is, what SIMs does it integrate with and how? Well, how is going to be easy. They can give the logs to it. But which ones, I don't know. Do you have any idea back there? Checkpoint, guys? Yeah, I believe I saw a list online that showed, like the IBM and Splunk and those guys on there. So I think I saw a list online.
So the client reports back to what when there's a log?
So the client reports back to the Checkpoint side, which already has their event manager and all that, if you're familiar with Checkpoint. And then from there, then we can feed that into the SIMs. Yeah. Or they can. I say we like I work there. I don't work there. Anybody else? Good questions? Good questions? Yes? Not today. This is fairly new technology. There is only even a couple vendors that are even doing anything like this at all. And then what we find is that they're only doing parts of it, right? So there's vendors out there that are looking for man-in-the-middle attacks. That's all they're doing, right? There's vendors out there that are looking at malware. That's all they're doing. Or they're looking at malware and they're just saying, hey, you have it, and they don't have any way to mitigate it, right? So there's a few things that are starting to pop up. I think it's a new technology you're going to start seeing be more prevalent, but that's what it is right today. Not familiar with what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, I doubt it, but you know, they may have the malware piece, the virus piece, because they're a virus company for the most part, but not sure. Any other questions? All right, so just to summarize, it's called Checkpoint Mobile Threat Prevention, MTP. You're going to start seeing that acronym a lot more. Provides the highest level of mobile security available today, looking at the OS itself, the device itself, the network that you're connected to, as well as the applications. Again, I challenge you to find somebody who's doing all three. There are some that are doing one, maybe two, but Checkpoint's the only people out there doing all three, doing it well. The full mobile threat visibility and intelligence, giving you the information of how risky an application is and whether or not that should even be loaded on your device, integrating with your MDMs to protect you, and then, again, simple deployment. It's just an app, right? You just got to find a way to get it down there, and most of the people are just using their MDM that they currently have in place and enhancing the value of that by being able to protect the network, the OS, and the apps. With that, I'm going to be done. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the conference.